People trash talk all the time in our lives, but how often do we talk about trash? I want to inform you of how your Starbucks Frappuccino cup or your Red Solo cup or other single-use plastics find their way into our oceans in what's called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Now, my purpose is not to persuade you or advocate for either side of this environmental issue. Rather, it's to inform you of what the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is, how it has formed, and the logistics of curing this issue. So, what is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? The U.S. Department of Commerce defines it as a term used by the media to refer to concentrations of marine debris in the North Pacific Ocean. Here's a Google Maps picture, so it's easy to locate. It is east of Japan and west of California. I learned a lot about this topic in the documentary Plastic Paradise, which is narrated by Angela Sun, an award-winning journalist, sportscaster, filmmaker, who references scientists, researchers, influencers, and volunteers in the documentary. This documentary said that the Great Pacific Garbage Patch varies between the size of 2 Texases and the continental United States. So I want to show you this picture again to put that into perspective of just how large it is. Both the documentary and the U.S. Department of Commerce agreed that the garbage patch is not easily visible to the naked eye because most of the garbage is beneath the surface of the water and it is constantly moving and changing with the currents of the ocean. In addition to its size and its location, a distinct quality of the garbage patch is the content of what it is made of. According to Charles Moore, an oceanographer, captain, and the founder of Algalita Marine Research Foundation, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is made up of single-use plastics such as food packaging, bottle caps, soap bottles, small plastics, plastic bags, and fishing nets. Now that I've talked about what the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is, I'm going to tell you about how and when it formed. The garbage patch physically forms when the debris materials collect in the enormous, slow whirlpool of the ocean's currents called a gyre. It is visualized in this picture that I received from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. NOAA also explains that marine debris comes from when beachgoers don't pick up after themselves, when rainwater moves city trash into streams and rivers, making its way into the ocean, when trash cans and landfills overfill, and when people on boats throw their trash overboard or is accidentally blown off. So when did this begin? The Plastic Paradise documentary I watched that I mentioned earlier explains that the garbage patch was first discovered in the late 1990s after World War II. Germany started to produce single-use plastics because they needed to find a substitute for raw materials. And Charles Moore elaborates on this when he says that the plastic industry boomed after the Great Depression and World War II because we needed to direct our enormous production capacity towards the creation of products for peacetime. This Life magazine cover advertised that these single-use plastics were used to make life easier for housewives so they don't have to do dishes anymore. Now that I've talked about what it is, how and when it formed, I'll explain the logistics of curing this issue. A frequently asked question is, well, why don't we just go clean it up? And the simple answer is that we can't just go sift all of the oceans and get the garbage out because when plastic breaks down, the water beats it up and it becomes smaller and smaller, becoming microplastics. There's so much plastic in the ocean that it won't make a difference. A quote from NOAA says that if you tried to clean up less than 1% of the Pacific Ocean, it would take 67 ships 1 year to clean up that portion. A second question asked is, well, what about recycling? Doesn't that help? And the documentary explains that recycling only helps minimally. It says that or it says that only one type of plastic is reusable and recyclable, and also that all of our recyclables are shipped to China, which puts them at greater risk of falling overboard and further polluting our oceans. Charles Moore admits that the damage has already been done and that there's no hope to clean it up. The best thing that we can do is to not contribute to it anymore. In his TED Talk titled Seas of Plastic, he concludes with a short poem that goes, "All of the king's horses and all of the king's men will never gather up the plastic and put the ocean back together again." After hearing me speak, I hope that you have a better understanding of what the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is, how it has formed, and the logistics of curing this environmental issue. As a college student, it is important for us to know that whether it's our Starbucks cups or our red Solo cups, we have already made an impact on the world. And next time you want to trash talk, try talking about trash instead.